Hey, toy fans, Rob here, back with another figure review for you guys. I am taking a look today at the brand new line of Playmates Star Trek figures released in 2022. Now, these figures are meant to evoke the look of the Playmates toys from the 90s. They've got wonderful retro-style packaging. As you'll see here, this card is designed to mimic the look of a card that existed in the 90s, the later life cycle of the Playmates figures. Now, what we have here is Admiral Kirk. This is Kirk apparently celebrating the 40th anniversary of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Wasn't even keeping track, but it's pretty cool to see this guy out on the shelf. Kirk's not the only figure in this line. There's going to be a Burnham and Saru from Star Trek Discovery, a Kirk and a Khan from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, as well as a Data and a Picard from Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, all of these figures aren't available yet. Amazon was starting to ship a few of them out, so I actually requested for my birthday an Admiral Kirk figure, and my mother-in-law was happy enough to gift it to me, so I thought we'd go ahead and take a look at this today. And yeah, as I said, this is inspired by the retro-style packaging. We do have a blister bubble that has the accessories in the front and the figure in the front. It has, graphics similar to what we saw in those old 90s cards, including the logo completely recreated, the way the ship looks, all of it's a nice homage to the original card. But what I really love is on the back here. We get a full breakdown of all the accessories like we used to in the 90s, as well as the descriptions for them. And we just have a cross-sell of the other figures available in this line, something that I wish Marvel Legends would do more of with their retro-carded figures. Okay, so one thing I want to mention about this card, and I've seen this in other figure reviews, including Sound Out 12s, is that the blister bubbles aren't really attached to the back very well. I don't know if that's going to be a problem that plagues retail, but if it does, you're probably going to see a lot of these things sitting on the pegs, or rather sitting on the base decks or the shelves of your retailer, just already out of the box, possibly missing accessories. So if you're going to pick up these figures and you're not doing it at a specialty store, I'm going to recommend you try to order these online, but I will mention this one came from Amazon, and as you can see, it's a thinner cardboard, kind of what we're used to seeing with Star Wars vintage collection figures. It is not going to stand up to abuse if it's just chucked in a box. So however you want to collect these things, just be aware of how to be prepared for whatever may arrive, and do what you can to prevent such issues. All right, Trekkies, so that's enough taking a look at the packaging. Let's get this Admiral Kirk out of the box and see what he's all about. All right, toy fans, so here we have Admiral Kirk out of the packaging, and as you can see, all of his accessories are currently in use. He's on the display stand. It's just a stand that has a single peg sticking up out of it. It's not a lot to write home about. It's just the Delta shield with, nothing on the back. I think they could have done a little more with this, but I guess something is better than nothing. And then in his left hand, we have the captain's log sort of data pad. Very plain. You can barely tell what it is, if I'm being honest. And then we have a wrist communicator that we saw featured in a few of the movies. It's got a nice amount of detail there. Some paint would have been nice, but, it's actually snaps onto his wrist, so I can't complain there. And then in his right hand, we, of course, have a classic Star Trek phaser. Now, this, of course, isn't the same that we saw in the original series. This is from one of the movies. But again, great sculpted detail, no paintwork, but it works for what it is. Now, the Kirk figure himself is actually better than I expected, if I'm being honest. He's got several points of articulation. His shoulders can move up and down and rotate all the way around. His elbow actually has a ball joint on it as well. Can spin left and right and move up and down. He's got a full rotation in the hand, which is something that the old Playmates figure sorely lacked. He has no waist swivel, which is kind of interesting. His head looks left and right. It feels like it might be a ball joint, but it doesn't really get a lot of up or down motion. He's got hinges in the hips that can swing in and out, as well as move forward and backward. His knees have a ball joint, so he can move forward and backward, and they rotate all around. His ankle is great in that it moves up and down, and can even turn left and right a little bit, but there's no actual ankle pivot like we're used to seeing in, say, Marvel Legends or even more modern Star Wars figures. I do wish there was an ankle pivot, but outside of that, he's not too bad when it comes to articulation. Paint-wise, we're looking pretty good. Mostly clean paint apps around that combat. Well, now that I say that and see it up close, it could be a little bit better. From a distance, it looks better. He's got the proper paint for his rank insignia there on his left arm. He's got more rank insignia paint there. He's got the gold trim that was part of the Admiral style of this uniform. Red paint down the leg. Paint on the back of the figure. And then we do have this, which is more of an eyesore on camera than it is in person. It looks super raised there, but you really don't feel it that much. And, I'd prefer that it was not on the figure at all, or maybe on the inside of the leg or the bottom of the foot. But overall, I don't think that all of that Playmates information detracts from the overall look of the figure, at least when you're facing him from front or side or what have you. I do think the likeness is really good. That looks like movie era Kirk. I think back in the Playmates 90s days, a lot of the likenesses were really soft, for my opinion. But I do think that this looks like a proper Star Trek II era movie Kirk. So happy on that front as well. I mean, really, first impressions of this figure, I like it quite a bit. I was skeptical of these figures when they were first announced, but yeah, I think Playmates is moving in the right direction. Now let's go ahead and bring in a 90s Kirk figure. I don't happen to have the Generations movie Kirk figure with a limited articulation. I just never got that figure, but I do have this series Kirk figure. And as you can see, the new Playmates figure is just a little bit taller than the old Playmates toys from the 90s. So they can sort of interact with the other figures if you have them, but the scaling is going to be just a tad bit off. As we look at this figure here, you'll see he comes right up to about 5 inches, whereas the old 90s figure is just a bit shorter than that, more like 4 3/4. But again, I'm repeating myself here. I like this figure. Let's go ahead and have some fun and compare him to some other Kirk figures that I've got in my collection. Okay, so just for a little bit of fun, let's bring in the Art Asylum Green Tunic Kirk. This is from a 7-inch figure line for Star Trek that Art Asylum did in the early 2000s. And I've also got the first appearance Kirk, or where no man has gone before Kirk, wearing not quite the uniform that was featured in most of the original series. You'll notice there's not a black collar on that shirt. We'll go ahead and bring in that Playmates Kirk one more time. This is the uniform that he wore through most of the original series. And then we've got a first generation Mini-Mates Kirk figure here, back when the figures were closer to 3.5 inches tall. And let's go ahead and bring in a standard Mini-Mates Kirk. You'll see here, closer to the 2-inch mark. Again, still wearing that yellow shirt. We're going to go ahead and bring in the Mega Bloks Kirk, even smaller version of him in his yellow tunic. And just because we're having fun with this, let's go ahead and bring in the Amok Time Kirk. And we're going to go ahead and bring in the Mirror Evil Kirk. Well, I guess this Kirk wasn't evil, but he came from an evil universe. And then let's go ahead and bring in the Green Tunic Kirk here from Mini-Mates, the San Diego Comic-Con Convention exclusive. And then lastly, let's bring in an actual Wrath of Khan Mini-Mate Kirk. Of course, my Wrath of Khan Kirk isn't wearing the same uniform as the Kirk figure we're looking at here today. This Mini-Mates Kirk is wearing his away team gear, while this Kirk is in his standard bridge attire. And there you have it, toy fans. That's my Kirk collection as it currently stands. And that's my review, toy fans. That is the Admiral Kirk figure from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, from Playmates in 2022. If you guys haven't seen this movie, The Wrath of Khan is currently streaming on Paramount+. I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's kind of the quintessential anything from Star Trek, the original series, whether it be the TVs or the movies. Everyone's always talks about this movie whenever they mention Star Trek, at least the Kirk era. So if you don't know what it is, go watch it if you've got Paramount+. If not, I'm sure you can find this movie streaming somewhere. And just give it a wrench. Just finally give it a watch and see what you think. And if you like it, watch the next 2 movies, and then you've got the whole kind of encapsulated trilogy from Star Trek, the original series, at least as far as the movies go. I want to give a special thanks to my mother-in-law for buying this figure for me for my birthday. That was really nice of her. But I gotta say, if you're just getting started with Star Trek figure collecting, or just feeling nostalgic for the old 90s toys, definitely beam this guy up. Thanks for watching, toy fans. If you guys want to keep up with me, just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at D21Beast. We'll see you next time.